Hello and welcome to Action Playbook Live. I am Gilles Gallant. You are watching the NFL pregame betting show here with the Action Network. We come here every Sunday morning and we're live on YouTube and Twitter. We're going to cover a lot each week: player props, touchdown bets, parlays. But we don't just do player props here. We got a lot to talk about, some sides, some totals. Nick Giffen will join us here in a little bit to talk about Week 18, some totals that we're going to be targeting for an edge. Evan Abrams, our director of research here at Action Network, he's got a lot of betting info for the trends and market moves for Week 18. But joining me off the hop is going to be Sean Kerner and Kyle Murray. We're going to give out our favorite player props for Week 18. And if you want to tail any of the bets that we give out today, the easiest way is to actually use the quick slip links in the YouTube chat. We're going to be dropping links in the chat after every pick we make. This way you can just tail the bet as quickly as possible. You can get the best lines and the best odds. And if you're watching on X and Twitter, at Playbook, so the account Playbook is tweeting our picks from the show, so you can get the bet slips from there. And we also have to talk about Action Pro, because if you want access to all of Action Pro projections, make sure to sign up for an annual subscription, because access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Kerner, Chris Raybon, everyone at the Action Network team, along with some really good anytime touchdown projections. So to sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today. Use code POD20 at sign up. One more time, that's POD20 at sign up for $20 off. So let's get started with some player props for Week 18. And Kerner, you are up first. Where are we going?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tanner McKee under 224 passing yards. Now, this one's kind of conflicting for me because I love McKee. I think he's one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. Kyle is a fellow preseason freak like myself, so he knows like McKee was a beast in preseason. So I think he's going to do great today. But, this is a pretty high line for him because the Commanders are an easy matchup, but in preseason, he's typically facing second, third stringers. But today he's going to be without Dallas Goedert, most likely going to be without AJ Brown and Devontae Smith too. So he's likely throwing to Jahan Dotson, Darius Cooper, Britton Covey, and Grant Calcaterra. So there's only so much McKee can do. I still think he's going to be efficient, and I think the Eagles win this game fairly easily, and they should be able to lean on the run. And I'm very high on Tank Bigsby today as well. So I think that could eat into his, upside in this market. So love Tanner McKee, as a player, but I think this line's way too high. I'm projecting this closer to 210. So I was kind of surprised we saw this. But again, he's a really good backup quarterback. So if he goes for 250 today, so be it. But I'm going to take his under here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably weighing that one game log from last year in Week 18 against the Giants, where I think he threw for like 250 plus. But
Yeah.
again, different matchup, different situation here, way less weapons. So Tanner McKee under 224 and a half passing yards. That is Kerner's prop that he likes for Week 18. Kyle, you are up. And is this the big load bet of the week?
Not quite. It's fairly close. It's not a receiving play for running back, but it is a running back. And a running back that I bet quite often this year, Trayvon Henderson. Obviously, in Week 18, motivations, or I guess lack thereof, can be an important thing to look at in Week 18. And obviously, the Patriots have full motivation to go out there and play this game. So I'm taking the over 58 and a half rushing yards for Trayvon Henderson. Good matchup here against Miami run defense that has been a top 7 matchup in rush DVOA so far this season, and they are also allowing the 8th most rushing yards per carry. So obviously we know Trayvon Henderson has the ability to break a long run anytime he has the ball in his hands. I do think that's obviously a nice thing to have in your back pocket with Henderson because we are going to have potential struggles with volume being taken away from him by Ramondre Stevenson, but throughout the end of the day, over 58.5 rushing yards. We project this around 66 rushing yards for Henderson. And since week 10, in every healthy game Henderson has played, 62 plus rushing yards in those games, obviously taking away that Baltimore game where he was knocked out of that one with a concussion. So give me the over here on Henderson and his 58.5 rushing yard prop.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point too of that he could just bust this on one run. Like that's how
Yeah.
explosive he is in this offense. And yeah, being with how explosive he is, I imagine they're probably going to lean on him a little bit more this week just to round out the season. All right, I'm moving to the Chiefs Raiders game. I usually do uh, an interception prop in this spot. And I am going to take Chris Oladukin to throw an interception. This is his third start in the NFL. He has not looked overly impressive in 2 starts. And I'm a little confused by the line because it's around plus 125. We were talking about this off air that maybe there's a non-zero chance he might not even finish the game because of how bad he's looked in this offense. But for reference, I just think this is too much of an odd swing because last week against the Broncos, minus 170 to throw an interception. In his first start 2 weeks ago against the Titans, he was minus 130. So even though he didn't throw an interception, he still had a turnover worthy play in each game. And I think the Raiders are going to sit back in coverage. They play zone at the top rate in the NFL. They're just going to wait on a mistake. And I think as well, too, Hollywood Brown and Travis Kelce, just a lot of passing incentives for Chiefs wide receivers this week. So I think Oladukin pass attempts may just trend up as a result. So I had this kind of price closer to a coin flip. And right now, looking at our Action Pro projections, this is actually the biggest interception edge on the docket right now at 16% edge right now for Chris Oladukin to throw an interception. So I'm seeing a plus 130 out there. I tracked it at plus 125, but anything at plus money, I think, is a pretty good spot here for Oladukin. So those are our 3 props. I'm on Chris Oladukin interception. Kyle is on Travion Henderson over 58.5 rushing yards. And Sean Kerner is on Tanner McKee under 224.5 passing yards. Quick slip links have been dropped in the YouTube chat if you want to tail any of these bets. Now, normally I always like to round it out with a touchdown bet, but I'm going to save those for the end of the show. Kerner, you're going to join me. We're going to give out our favorite touchdown props for week 18. And also Grant Nefer, he's going to be joining us in a bit with a touchdown kind of lotto parlay for week 18. And yeah, so we'll wrap that up here. But Kyle, Kerner, why don't you guys take a quick break? We'll get you back here in a minute. We'll talk about Sunday Night Football. Let's talk with Derek Carty and see what picks he likes for week 18. We now welcome back to Action Playbook Live. Derek Carty, creator of the Blitz projections for the NFL. He appears every week and gives us some awesome player props to consider. And you can follow him in the Action app at Derek Carty. So as he gives these player props out, remember to grab the quick slip links in the chat because some of these prop lines will move once Derek gives them out. So Derek, where are we starting first? What's your first player prop you like for week 18?
First one I'm looking at is Cedric Tillman unders. Now, books are split between under 2.5 receptions or under 1.5. I like both of them, so I will take both. The best 2.5 line you can find is minus 150 at the score and at FanDuel, and then the best 1.5 is plus 175 at Bet365. But the Blitz is projecting 1.59 here, so a full reception under the 2.5 line and close to a 50-50 proposition on the 1.5 that we're getting at huge plus money. He hasn't had more than 1 reception in 7 weeks. He has only had 3 receptions. He's only gone over that 2.5 line 3 times all year. And his usage has been down lately. Over the last 3 weeks, he only has a 31% route share. That's lower than, obviously, Jerry Jeudy, lower than Isaiah Bond, basically on par with the wide receiver 4 and 5 for them, Corley and Gage Larvadane, if I'm saying his name correctly. So really, not a lot to like here for Tillman. The main thing that scares me is just that Harold Fannin is not going to be playing to soak up the targets, but I still think more likely than anything else, this ball is going to be spread around, and I think Tillman going under here is a pretty good bet.
And this isn't the first time you've given out Tillman on the show. I've seen you give out some unders just because of that, where his route share is going down. I think another thing, too, is the Bengals low-key have been pretty good at defending wideouts. It's over the middle and to tight ends where they've been getting gashed the entire season.
Right.
So Cedric Tillman under 2.5 receptions, and you're even liking the under 1.5 receptions at plus odds right now. So that's the first prop from Derek. Where are we going with the next one?
The next one I'm looking at is Jaden Blue under 56.5 rushing yards. The best odds on the board right now are minus 110 at Bet365. The Blitz is projecting 40 yards for Jaden Blue. This is obviously a situation where we don't know anything for sure, but this seems like a high line given the uncertainty that we have around this situation. Jaden Blue has been a guy that Dallas has been down on all year. You know, he came into the year as a sleeper for some people, thinking he might take the starting job after a couple weeks, and that never happened. He lost the backup job to Malik Davis. And now that Davis and Javonte Williams are both not playing this week, I think the assumption, at least that the books are making, is that Jaden Blue is going to be the lead back here. But I don't think that's guaranteed. They just activated fellow rookie Phil Maffa from IR. He's a guy that they like as well. They talked him up a good deal in the preseason. There's a non-zero chance that Maffa is the lead back here. And at the very least, I think he's going to eat into Jaden Blue's work. Plus, we have the narrative of Dak contending for the passing yards title in this one, so the potential for more passing than rushing anyway. So I think there's a few different routes that this one can get there.
And even Hunter Luepke might even steal a couple carries from him as well.
Absolutely.
Jaden Blue under 56.5 rushing yards. That is the second prop from Derek, and he's pairing that with Cedric Tillman under 2.5 receptions. So that is Derek's picks for Week 18. And make sure to follow him in the Action app at Derek Carty. And Derek, we'll see you again soon enough on Action Island.
All right, have a good one. Good luck.
Many thanks to Derek Carty joining us. Now we bring on my good friend, Dr. Nick Giffen. He is a predictive analyst here with the Action Network. And normally we like to do luck rankings here, Nick, but you have made it very clear to me that there is no Week 18 luck rankings. So stop saying that. So anyway, before we get into that, just maybe even explain a little bit why there's not luck rankings for Week 18. But let's talk about then some totals that you like as well.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason is week 18, obviously all over the place with motivation. Some teams tanking, some teams resting players for the playoffs, all sorts of different motivations that has shown that the last week of the regular season, the luck rankings have had absolutely no predictability over the history of it. So yeah, that's why we don't have it. But in some normal motivation spots, I think the principles could still apply.
Yeah, and I mean, like even right now, like we're doing player projections, doing whatever, and then randomly, like Nico Collins will just get scratched, and you're like, well, I guess that doesn't help. But let's talk about the Titans Jaguars, because right now I'm seeing a total around 47.5. What are we looking at on that side?
Yeah, I'm looking at the under on this one, and this is one of those, what I would call normal motivation spots, aside from, maybe the Titans trying to tank, but they're still playing all their regular starters. So this would be a luck under if we counted week 18 in the luck rankings. Our schedule adjusted expected scores, which power the luck rankings, would make this actually a lot closer to the key number of 44 rather than the key number of 47. I think that's a full 3 points right there is pretty valuable. And we have a slightly negative QB coverage matchup for both QBs. So that means the coverages the opposing defenses tend to throw, they've been a little less efficient against. So that's certainly an important part of the QBs are going to be slightly less efficient. And Tennessee's defense has been playing a little bit better, about a point per game better over the latter third of the season. So that could help this under a little bit as well.
For sure. Yeah. And I think the thing too with the Titans is that offensively, they're just really capped on what they can do. And I think to be able to put up even 20 plus points, I think if this goes over, Jacksonville is doing the heavy lifting on that in this front. So under 47.5, Titans, Jaguars, that is the first pick. We've got an over here. And this one, I was actually surprised you took the over. What's the game that we're taking the over in?
Yeah, we're going to the NFC East. New York Giants versus Dallas Cowboys over 49.5. If this was a normal motivation game, normal everything, if we looked at season long for Jackson Dart and the New York Giants, I would have this closer to like 55. In Jackson Dart's starts this year, looking at the full season. Now, I know the second portion of his season has been very bad, but if we look at the full season, this would be 22.5 points per game scored in dart starts, 22 expected. So they've pretty much been right at expectation. And Dallas has been the worst defense in the NFL by season-long DVOA, and weighted even more recently, still the same DVOA. So, we would expect an average team, because the NFL average is 23 points per game. So one that's getting 22 and a half against a team that's allowing schedule adjusted like 29 points per game. We would expect them to score almost 29 points in a normal adjustment there. So of course, if we adjust for the fact that Jackson Dart starts have been terrible lately, overall, even if we knock a field goal off of that, I'm still getting well over 49 and a half here. And then on Dallas's side, their team total is just 26 and a half, but they've averaged 27 per game by schedule adjusted expected score. And now they face a Giants defense that ranks 26. So again, we'd expect closer to like 29 and a half for this Dallas Cowboys before adjusting for home field and weather and things like that. So, even after all these adjustments, I'm getting this closer to the key number of 51 instead of all the way up at 55, but that's still above this 49 and a half number. So I like over 49 and a half. I'd even play this up to like 50 and a half.
I'm kind of wondering right now who Dart's going to throw to. I don't know if you saw that tweet, Nick, with Theo Johnson at the Knicks game, and is reportedly out with an illness this week. They just shut down Wan'Dale Robinson as well. So, yeah, I'm hoping for a nice little Jackson Dart touchdown maybe in this game as well. But yeah, over 49 and a half. A lot of points could happen in this game, even with the potential of cold and backups. So, all right, that's the two sides. But Nick, you've got a touchdown prop you like, and you texted me about this immediately as you put it in, and I believe it has something to do with Aiden O'Connell. What do we like?
Yeah, we're going to my boy Trey Tucker. He didn't hit for us last week, but he was a massive part of the offense. 6 targets, 2 carries, another target called back on a penalty. So didn't get the touchdown, but it felt like he should have. Going right back to the well here with no Brock Bowers. Take his anytime touchdown. And for this Aiden O'Connell angle that I'm going to talk about, we'll take his second half, last touchdown, and 2+ touchdowns as well. Pete Carroll said that Aiden O'Connell will play, but we're expecting Kenny Pickett to start. So to me, I'm reading tea leaves here. I would expect probably second half for Aiden O'Connell, some or even all of the second half. And he and Trey Tucker have had the magic hookup over their careers. 50% of Trey Tucker's career receiving touchdowns have come from Aiden O'Connell, despite just 28.7% of Tucker's career targets coming from AOC. And then 25% of Aiden O'Connell's passing touchdowns have gone to Tucker, despite just throwing 10% of his career pass attempts to Trey Tucker. So they definitely have the magic link. A lot of deep balls. 4 of their touchdowns together have been on deep passes. So one of them came against Kansas City last year. So give me Trey Tucker anytime touchdown, but especially looking towards the second half or latter portion of the game.
Okay, so last year I remember with Aiden O'Connell, I'm pretty sure all the touchdowns that Tucker caught was from AOC. The next question I was going to ask is, you have a Trey Tucker jersey. What would have to hit for you to buy a second one? Would it have to be the second half and the last? Would it have to be a 2+? I'm just wondering, how far do we have to go to get a second Trey Tucker jersey in your closet?
Honestly, just anything, because he wore number 11 last year. He's been number 1 this year. So I have the number 11 jersey. I don't have the number 1 jersey.
You do one of those seam rippers where you just rip off one of the ones or something
exactly.
that. Okay, well, that is Dr. Nick Giffen. He is on the over 49 and a half with Giants Cowboys, under 47 and a half with the Titans and the Jaguars, and he is all in on Trey Tucker to score a bunch of touchdowns on that Chiefs defense. So make sure to follow him in the Action app, Nick_Giffen. Make sure to tune in to Bet What Happens Live and Action Island, and we'll see more of Nick in the Action Network Discord. We'll talk again soon, buddy.
See ya.
All right, let's welcome in our Director of Research, Evan Abrams, my go-to guy when it comes to the latest betting trends and data. You can check out his weekly betting primer. It is on the Action Network app, and it's also pinned to his Twitter and X profile. Everything you need to know going into Week 18. Loves to use Bet Labs as well. A lot of good systems and ways that we can attack the market. And in the market, Evan, we're seeing right now maybe some win totals coming to a conclusion here. What are some of the ones that are up in balance here in Week 18?
Yeah, 28 to 32 NFL teams decided entering this week. Here are the 4 that aren't. The Eagles need a win to go over 11.5 against the Commanders. Cowboys at 7 wins need a win over the Giants for 7.5. The Dolphins probably won't happen. Need a win at 7 to get over 7.5 in New England. And the Browns at 4 wins after the win last week at trying to go 4.5 in Cincinnati today. So those are the 4 win totals that need to be decided entering week 18.
I think the one that surprises me the most, like, I think I just forgot that the Dolphins have won 7 games this year. Like, you know what I mean? Like the
Correct.
Cowboys, sure, Eagles, sure, Browns, 4 wins is 4 wins, but 7 wins, I did not think, for some reason, it just kind of glossed past my memory just because of the disaster that the Dolphins have had this year for their season and benching Tua, right? So, what about some division titles? Because right now, there's a couple that are up for grabs for week 18.
Yeah, we currently have 3 division titles still up for grabs. The only preseason favorite to win the division so far has actually been the Eagles. So
Oh.
if the Steelers beat the Ravens tonight, the Jaguars take care of business against the Titans, and the Falcons win so that the Panthers win the division, it would be the fewest preseason favorites crowned champion since 2008, which would be one and only the Eagles, which kind of leans into the absolute chaos we have walked into this season in terms of, I think there's been 7 or 8 different Super Bowl favorites in a given week. We might have 2 11-win preseason win totals out of the playoffs, even with 14 teams getting in. It has been absolute chaos so far. So we'll see how today concludes.
And even our guy Brandon Anderson, he was all over Bears Island, worst to first as well from a
Yeah.
new division title standpoint. So, kudos to him. Let's talk about some of the spreads today because some pretty big, like 10+ spreads out there this week. Is there anything notable about that?
Yeah, absolutely absurd. So right now, as of this morning, with Buffalo getting up to -10 against the Jets, we have 7 double-digit favorites in the NFL today. The Vikings, the Texans, the Jaguars, the Patriots, the Bills, the Rams, and the Broncos. We haven't had 7 double-digit favorites in a single week since 1987, and this is tied for the most in a single week since 1975. Also notable is the fact that we have 7 on a single day. Usually it's come on a Saturday or a Monday. This is the most double-digit favorites in a single day since week 11 of 1976. Truly an absolutely absurd, historic week 18 with, as we get closer to kickoff, these lines are just going up as well. It looks like Cincinnati just jumped from -8.5 to -9.5. So there's a chance we get an 8th today, which honestly, I'd have to keep looking back, which might be a record dating back to the merger. Some crazy, crazy lines getting at, and some really, everything's getting inflated at the moment where everyone's kind of diving into these favorites. So we will see how today goes, but I'm assuming at least 1 or 2 of these are going to come home, which I'll talk about in a second with this trend we found in Bet Labs.
I mean, still though, man, 50 years of sample, and this is the largest
Insane.
amount that we've had. It is insane, man. But sorry, what were you talking about? Week 17 and week 18, these underdogs. What's the strat? What's the trend with that?
Yeah, so I had a few of these fall in like 2 or 3 days ago when I wrote the primer. Now we could have up to like 9 games in here. So week 17 and 18, underdogs of over a full touchdown, 7.5 or more, have actually been profitable. $100 better, have had about 10% ROI. They've been profitable in 3 straight seasons, 7 of the last 10. Now we have a ton of matches today, right? There's just so many games right now that fit in
Yep.
that 7.5 category, but it's kind of telling you that of these, let's say 8 or 9 games, we might get 2 or 3 upsets. And at this rate, they're all going to be double-digit upsets. Or even if the Dolphins somehow beat the Patriots, that would be almost a 2-touchdown upset. So wild stuff going on today. Kind of my favorite week since there's so much inflation in the numbers and so much to look into. But absolute chaos out there, Joe.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how the public reacts. Like if there's just going to be a lot of money line dog chasing today, which if there is the case, it's you can get a little bit of profit, but you probably have. I wouldn't just blindly bet every one of them and hoping for the
The
best.
crazy one is the Bills up to 85% of tickets right now, which would be the highest number in Josh Allen's career. And it's getting a little bit out of hand. So we'll see how this one concludes the next hour and a half.
And he might only even play like a snap, like in that game,
Correct.
just to keep the Iron Man streak going. All right, let's talk about Bet Labs because Bet Labs has a lot of good systems and ways to attack these markets, especially with some background and historical data here. So, what is the Bet Labs pick of the week for Week 18?
Yeah, we're actually giving you 2 today, and we're giving you 2 because I've been on the favorites. I've been on the pod with Brandon Anderson. Like I've been doing a bunch of work this week, and everyone seems to be on the same side of these 2 games. So we're on Pittsburgh and Baltimore under 41.5. We saw
Okay.
2 division games yesterday where literally 3 touchdowns were scored in both games. No DK Metcalf, obviously, in this game tonight. So we're hoping for a low total there, even though it opened 43.5, still 41.5 over a few key numbers. And the other one is Washington. We have it in the favorites parlay. They like it at plus 3.5. It's been as high as 6.5 and 7.5, but obviously come down a lot. Tanner McKee starting, no Eagles starters out there, treating it basically like a preseason game. So let's just toss our money into Josh Johnson and see what happens there.
All right, 39-year-old Josh Johnson plus 3.5. Okay. And then Pittsburgh Baltimore just shaping up to be
Yeah.
a classic AFC North matchup. If that falls below 40, like we're seeing just like, a 17-14 game.
Get
So
the
yeah,
number
that could,
now.
pardon?
Yeah, get the number now. Like
Yeah,
I assume
absolutely.
maybe if I fall a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because I think I saw 40.5 in the market throughout the week. So yeah, definitely. All right, Evan, great work as always. Make sure to check out his weekly betting primer on the Action app. He's also going to be live tonight with Brandon Anderson for the Week 18 recap show, and I'm sure it'll be chock full of information as we start to look at Wild Card Weekend and the playoffs. So Evan, thanks a lot. We'll see you again next week.
All right, good luck.
All right, everyone, time to take it up a notch. Time to hit the lotto. Get a little bit crazy here. And we try to find a plus EV parlay. And joining me, as always, is Grant Nafer from Scores and Odds. You can find him in the Parlay Science Discord. He's dropping bangers every day. And of course, Sean Kerner, he's always finding value in the long shot markets, triple crown props, sack parlays. I'm sure he's got something really cool here coming up. But Grant, let's start with you. What are you thinking that we could do for a long shot parlay for week 18?
Well, this one may seem kind of ugly, but it's week 18 and they're all ugly. Every single game pretty much after 2 games yesterday. But this one's at 65 to 1 over at Bet365. In the first leg, Chris Oladokun, 200 plus passing yards. You get it plus 525. I know he's looked terrible, but he also played the Broncos last week. It's not the same matchup this week. He's going up against the Raiders in Vegas, playing in a dome, which should help. And the Raiders, they don't want to win. They don't want to play any of their defense. They are near the bottom of the league in pressure rate this season, and now they don't have Max Crosby in there. They play zone at a heavy rate. It's probably just going to be some backyard football, just no real pressure on him for the majority of the game. Kelsey's last game, potentially, most likely for the Chiefs. Probably going to add some extra passes to him there. Hollywood Brown has some incentives, probably going to add some passes to him there. So this line, I know it is disgusting. I know he looked terrible, but this is such a good matchup. Potentially the worst pressure rate team in the league without Crosby in there. Oladokun should have the time, and he should be able to make some passes. Plus 200 plus at plus 525 is
Yep.
way too high. Next up, Parker Washington to score a touchdown, plus 200. He has been phenomenal recently, and the volume has been fantastic. 10 targets over the last 2 games, 145 and 115 receiving yards the last 2 games. Has a few touchdowns, 3 touchdowns in his last 7. So this line at plus 200, far too high going up against the bad Titans defense. And lastly, Michael Wilson, 100 plus receiving yards. You can find him around plus 250. Wilson has been phenomenal the second half of the season, and he's been so much better without Marvin Harrison in the lineup. Last 4 games without Marvin Harrison, 18 targets, 15 targets, 16 targets, 11 targets, 185 yards, 118 yards, 142 yards, and 54, but that was against the Texans, which we all know how tough of a team they are. They're still going to sling it. They don't have anything to play for. Right now, the Rams are 14-point favorites, so probably going to be forced into a passing game script. They probably don't want to win this game, but they probably at least want to make it a little bit fun. So they're going to be slinging the ball. Michael Wilson, 100 plus receiving yards at plus 250, far too high. Parlay them all together, again, 65 to 1 over at Bet365. Should be a fun one.
Oh my Lord. Okay, let's start here. So Oladukin, I'm with you. I think the pass attempts are going to be significantly up. I also am on him for an interception, but I think that doesn't necessarily cancel each other out. So I think we're both still on board with that. Parker Washington, I wrote about him in the touchdown preview. He's right now still playing, I think, the best of any Jags wide receiver, even almost, I'd probably say better than Jacoby Myers at this point. He probably should have had a touchdown last week. Nick and I were both on him. We collabed on him. We couldn't get it, but he had an end zone target that was ultimately intercepted. And then Michael Wilson, my favorite thing that you said was so much better without Marvin Harrison. And it's like, I think everybody right now on the Cardinals offense is just thriving without Marvin Harrison right now. So you put all 3 of those together, like you said, 65 to 1 seems very doable, especially given where these guys are all factoring in the offense. So that's Grant's Week 18 Lotto Parlay. The quick slip link has just been dropped in the YouTube chat. So if you want to tail that parlay, that's the easiest way to do it. All right, Kerner. This one is going to be, I would call it almost like a Kerner favorites. There's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
guys that very much featured in, if you've heard any of his content throughout the year, you know how high he is on a couple of these guys. So take it away. What is your parlay for Week 18?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with a fun parlay for this Lions Bears game. And the Bears don't have too much to gain from this game, but the starters are expected to play, I'm guessing, the full game. But Caleb Williams could be the first Bears quarterback to ever throw for 4,000 yards. He just needs to throw for 270 plus yards a day. And Caleb himself has said repeatedly, even heading into his rookie season and heading into this season, that this is a goal of his. So with him being that close, with them having, little to play for, I think, Ben Johnson's facing his former team today too, so he might want to stick it to Dan Campbell and the Lions. You never know. So I'm going to take Caleb 275 plus passing yards. And then for him to throw a ton of passing yards, he's got to throw it to my guy, Luther Burden the third. So I'm going to take him at 90 plus receiving yards. We already saw his breakout party on national TV last week, so I think people are well aware how good he is now. But I'm also throwing in Colson Loveland, 50 plus receiving yards. Really one of the better young tight ends in the league. I compared him to Jimmy Graham heading into this season, so I'm high on him. So I think both of those rookies have big games today to help Caleb clear 4,000 passing yards. And then Jill, of course, I got to run it back with my guy Isaac Tislat to score a
Full
touchdown.
circle.
Yeah, so I mean, I said, he's probably the best number 5 target in the league. And that's sort of been the case because he's only seen 26 targets this season, but he has scored 6 touchdowns. So I think Tisla mixing it with the touchdown here will help this game be a shootout and help, the Bears throw the ball. So love the correlation with this one, and it's actually paying out a little over 40 to 1. Right now it's up to plus 4,082. So love the value we're getting on this one.
I think all of these are in play. One of the things about Caleb and just the Bears offense, I think they just want to get this out of the way so they don't have to talk about it anymore because every year it's
Yeah.
always something that's just like hanging over their head. Are you going to be able to get the pass offense on track? Luther Burden, he is so steamed now, like you can't even get his touchdown prop for better than plus 140. Colston Loveland obviously is still emerging in this offense, but 50 plus receiving yards is very doable. And then Tesla touchdown, just again, the full circle. I wanted to bring that up because week 1, you had talked about how he's probably likely to score a touchdown. I was like, who? And then now here we are, week 18, rounding it out with a 40 to 1 parlay. So that's awesome. So again, the quick slip link for the Bears Lions same game parlay from Kerner, that is dropped in the YouTube chat now if you want to tail that. So Grant, Kerner, keep crushing it. Grant, we're going to see you back on Action Island with us soon enough, and you'll also be doing Bet What Happens Live with Nick in the Action Network Discord. All right, Kerner, let's bring Kyle back on here. I want to talk about Sunday Night Football, Ravens, Steelers. Ravens right now around 3.5 point favorites. The total around 41 and a half. So we're either going to see a classic AFC North matchup where it's a struggle, or maybe we'll actually see some of these offenses be able to kind of pick up. I'm leaning more to the latter, but again, even at 41, there's still probably going to be a couple of touchdowns scored in this game. So if that's the case, Kerner, what is your pick for Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Pat Freiermuth to score a touchdown here at plus 380 because, tight end Darnell Washington's on IR with his broken arm. So Muth should get, big increases in snaps. We saw him get a huge increase when Washington went down last week. Muth ended up with a 77% routes run rate. And with DK Metcalf suspended again this week, this wide receiver room is a disaster right now. So I think Muth is going to see a ton of targets. I would say Kenneth Gainwell is probably going to be the top target for the Steelers today, but once they get into the red zone, it's got to be Muth. So I like the value we're getting here. I'm projecting closer to plus 300. So yeah, plus 380, showing quite a bit of value on him.
Yeah, and I think he even played a season high in snaps too last week with after the injury. So Muth touchdown, that is the first prop that are going with. Now, Kyle, you are up, and I think Kerner might have kind of gave it away of what we're going with here. What's the prop that you like?
Yeah, that makes me feel even better about this play. But I like Kenny Gainwell, 30 plus receiving yards, and honestly, even if you wanted to boost up the juice on this parlay a little bit, I don't mind taking an alt line up to 40 or maybe even 50 if you're feeling real dangerous on Gainwell. Because like Kerner said, I think there's a really good chance that he's the lead receiver here or lead target in the passing game with DK Metcalf out. Obviously, full go here, winner go home game for the Steelers, and I think that this is also a good matchup for him. Since Week 10, since the trade deadline, the Steelers are the Ravens are allowing the third most receptions to opposing running backs. So good matchup for a team that allows a lot of volume to running backs out of the backfield. And obviously we know Kenny Gainwell is a guy who's been heavily involved in the passing game. 25 total targets over the last 4 games, three games over the last four with 7+ targets. So he's seeing a lot of volume here. So I think the outlines are in play for Kenny Gainwell, but I like the 30+ line here for this parlay.
Yeah, the way they've been mixing in both him and Jalen Warren has been interesting, but you do see that Gainwell tends to be the pass catching back, even though Jalen Warren is more than capable. Seems like they have more trust in Kenny G here in this offense. So that's the second prop. So Gainwell 30 plus receiving yards paired with Pat Fryermuth for an anytime touchdown. So I like Muth for an anytime touchdown, but I like another touchdown on the Ravens side. I like Isaiah Likely for a touchdown. I know he only has one this year. I just love the price we're getting. It's around plus 410. The touchdown that he did score this year was against the Steelers. He probably should have had two in that game. And they've played each other quite a bit. He's historically actually been a kind of a tough matchup for Pittsburgh. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but he's scored at least one touchdown against them in each of his 4 seasons. So I think when the Ravens get near the goal line, if Derrick Henry can't punch it in, I think Lamar Jackson's going to look for Likely in the end zone. So that would be the way that I would round out this parlay. If you want to parlay Pat Fryermuth with Kenneth Gainwell, 30 plus receiving yards, and Isaiah Likely for an anytime touchdown. So Muth touchdown, Likely touchdown, Gainwell, 30 plus receiving yards. I'm seeing 33-1 at Bet365 or even 36-1 at FanDuel. So I love this parlay for Sunday Night Football. We just dropped the quick slip link in the YouTube chat if you want to tail the Sunday Night Football parlay. All right, Kyle. We're going to see you next week at some point on Action Island and throughout the NFL playoffs. And of course, you're covering the NBA with buckets, so keep up the good work there. But Kerner, it is time for the touchdown show. And as always, we got to keep the touchdown show tradition going here. And we got my touchdown show co-host Sean Kerner coming back with some touchdown props. And for reference, if you have Action Pro, his projections actually power the anytime touchdown odds tool if you use that. So just wanted you guys to know that for reference. So as always, we're going to keep the same format. We're going to start off with the lowest odds, and then we're going to work our way up, and then we'll finish it off with an anytime touchdown parlay. So Kerner, you are up first. What is your favorite touchdown prop for Week 18?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Travion Henderson at plus 120. Earlier in the show, Kyle already mentioned some great points about just the matchup being solid here against Miami's run defense. But I just think it's a good time to buy low on the rookie a bit because, he didn't score last week despite the Pats dropping 40 plus points. Drake May ended up throwing for 5 touchdowns. So I bet Henderson's much more likely to mix in if they do score a handful of touchdowns here this week. And he's the type of player that can score from anywhere on the field. It's not like he needs to rely on goal line, touches or anything like that. So I'm projecting him closer to minus 110. So I was actually shocked we saw plus odds on him. Usually they just throw up, minus 150 and I move on. But I like the value I'm seeing with Henderson at plus 120 here.
Yeah, plus one, anything like plus odds again when you're getting him, just because given how explosive he is, I think it's a very solid value here. So Travion Henderson, I believe I'm seeing around plus 120, plus 130. That's a great first start for the touchdown show. Let's start now. I'm going to go with a Trey, but it's going to be Trey McBride. I grabbed his touchdown odds at plus 170. I've been pretty consistent with betting Trey McBride almost every week. The one thing that is normally as we got closer to the end of the season, Kerner, he started trending down to getting plus 110, plus 120 odds and, kind of gets steamed out of the market. But back up to plus 170, this is just too good of odds to ignore. I know he didn't score when he played the Rams in week 14. He still saw 9 targets, 2 in the end zone. And the Cardinals have been pretty transparent that they're going to spam Trey McBride near the goal line with targets. They just continue to do it. And if the Rams are going to play their starters, that means it's not going to be like a Cardinals blowout against, Stetson Bennett or Jimmy Garoppolo or something, right? So they're probably going to have to try to put up points. So I love Trey McBride to score an anytime touchdown. Okay, Kerner, next up, you are looking at a touchdown prop from the Chargers-Broncos game. What are we doing?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jaleel McLaughlin at plus 440. The Broncos are 14-point favorites today because the Chargers are resting Justin Herbert. potentially other key players. So the Chargers aren't taking this game seriously. And the Broncos should win with ease, which could be just more rushing volume overall to go around. But McLaughlin's really the early down backup to Harvey, whereas Tyler Bidet is more of like the passing down back. So if they do blow them out, I think it's going to be McLaughlin out there getting a lot of the mop up duty. And sometimes Harvey, if the Broncos have like a long drive and they get down to the goal line, that's when they kind of give Harvey some rest and McLaughlin can get a vulture score. So I think this is a spot where McLaughlin specifically just has a ton of upside, being Harvey's direct early down backup. So if this game gets away from them, we could see a ton of him in the second half. He'd also be a player I would consider betting on, like last touchdown score, but love McLaughlin here at plus 440.
And a pretty good pass catcher too. Like, and that's the one thing with RJ Harvey in this offense, been very much a pass catching back. But if it's just kind of a one for one replacement like McLaughlin, he's shown, like, I believe he scored his first touchdown in the NFL on a receiving touchdown as well. So Jaleel McLaughlin at plus 450, that is the second bet from Kerner. Now, Kerner, normally I don't like to really bet incentive markets. I find a lot of the time, especially like when guys are putting out incentive pieces in week 16, it kind of gets a little stale by the time we get to week 18. But one guy did stand out to me as somebody that could see a little bit more volume just in this matchup, and there is some incentive attached to it. And that's Deebo Samuel for an anytime touchdown. He's around plus 390. Actually, looking at the Action Pro tool right now, I'm showing that he is right now the number one edge for an anytime touchdown today at plus 390. So Josh Johnson is going to be at quarterback. So immediately that makes me think the passing upside, is at least downfield, could be quite limited. So I think a lot of those targets, like maybe for Terry, or other guys like that, might be a little bit more capped. Whereas I think Deebo, he could be somebody that could just break those long runs. They were looking for him early last week versus the Cowboys. He's got 6 touchdowns this year. He can reach incentives if he gets to 8 touchdowns. He has other contract incentives like receiving yards and receptions. But again, I talked about that those markets are pretty much priced out, I believe, at this point, looking at the comparison here of what he needs to reach those incentives. So I just could see them targeting Deebo early and often. Anything over plus 350 is showing value for me for Deebo Samuel. All right, let's get spicy, Kerner. What's a long shot touchdown bet that you like today?
Well, yeah, this guy is a long shot for sure, but Sal Cannella, the Browns tight end at 8 to 1. But with Harold Fannin Jr. and David Njoku out, it really opens things up for Cannella, who I was watching the film, but when Fannin Jr. went down, it was Cannella that kind of took over his role. They don't really have anybody else there, so he kind of fit the bill. But he saw 45% routes run rate last week. But again, that was mostly after Fannin went out, and he saw 4 targets, which was only behind Jerry Jeudy for the team lead. So Shador Sanders was looking his way almost like he was Harold Fannin Jr. And this is a matchup against a Bengals defense that we've been attacking with tight ends all season long. So I think Cannella is really sneaky here at 8 to 1.
Well, I think the funny thing about Canelo right now is they're pricing it as if Blake Whiteheart is the direct replacement right now. He's around like plus 450, plus 500. But
Yeah.
based on what we saw last week, it was kind of Canelo that kind of took the one for one replacement from Fannin. So given the way that the Bengals have defended tight ends this year, 8 to 1 just seems like a steal right now for not Salmonella, Sal Canella. All right. All right. My spicy bets. I'm going to take Deebo for 2 touchdowns. I logged it at 50 to 1. It's out there still at 40 to 1 if you want to grab that, given the contract incentive. So I'm not going to go too deep into that one. This one is kind of more a hope and a prayer kind of ultimate prove it spot. And it is going to be for Riley Leonard. I'm going to ladder his touchdown prop this week, Kerner. And I know it's not showing a lot of value at this point in the Action Pro tool, but I think this is just, again, a prove it spot for him. He's around 5 to 1 for an anytime touchdown. 80 to 1 for 2 touchdowns. And at Notre Dame, even at Duke, primarily a rushing quarterback coming out of college, ran for 17 touchdowns in his final season. He had multiple games with multiple touchdowns. And I like to give the similarity of like a Ryan Tannehill rushing upside when he was with Derrick Henry in Tennessee. Because when you have a running back like Jonathan Taylor, it's kind of the perfect complement to someone like Leonard, because JT just draws so much attention. And in the lone game that he did get to play in mop-up duty for Daniel Jones, he did end up running for a touchdown against the Texans. And Also, Daniel Jones, this is the other thing too, just from a pricing standpoint, quarterbacks in this offense, around like plus 300, plus 350. And I think Riley Leonard has just as much scrambling ability as Danny Dimes. So, when you get a rookie quarterback in a tougher matchup, quality secondary, I just picture Kerner, him getting near inside the 10. Everybody's covered. He panics and he scrambles to the end zone. And that's kind of where I'm seeing it here. And I think there's upside for 2 touchdowns as well. So Riley Leonard, touchdown ladder, along with Debo, 2 touchdowns. Those are my spicy picks. But let's do a touchdown parlay and get out of here. I think Travion Henderson needs to be the anchor leg of this touchdown parlay, Kerner. I think that should be the first leg. Trey McBride, I have him everywhere this week. I'm all in on Trey this week. But I guess the question came down to, do we want to do Debo or Jaleel McLaughlin? But right now, based on the touchdown prop market and just the anytime touchdown tool that we have in Action Pro, Debo is showing the highest value right now. So I think we should put him as the third leg. So when you parlay Travion Henderson, Trey McBride, and Debo Samuel, that is 23 to 1 at DraftKings, around 23 to 1 at FanDuel. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our guy, Nick Giffen, who is also on Trey Tucker. He had mentioned, hey, you know that there's a possibility that you could do the Trey parlay, and you can get that at 22 to 1 at DraftKings. So if you wanted to substitute Debo Samuel in for Trey Tucker, then we can get a touchdown pick from all of us here at Playbook Live. So, but we're going to do the Debo one. But again, if you want to do the Trey Tucker one, you can have fun with that as well for week 18. And we just dropped the touchdown parlay quick slip link in the YouTube chat if you want to tail that parlay. So that is all for today. Action Playbook Live, Kerner. We're locked and loaded. Week 18. We got there. We made it to the finish line of the regular season. We're going to be back here next week. We're going to preview wildcard weekend. We're likely going to be here on Saturday. We'll have our best bets for the entire wildcard weekend. So make sure to like and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube channel for notifications on when we will do those shows. And if you missed today's show and you want to get our picks, just download the Action app because all of our bets are tracked there. You can get them as soon as we bet them with pick notifications. So I want to thank you again for joining us for Action Playbook Live for NFL Week 18. Bon chance.